The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
SGA has his first ever 50-point game against the Utah Jazz.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, what a game this was. I mean, you enter this game, not a ton of juice. Like, there's question marks of if J-Dub was going to play. He did. We'll get to him coming up. It's the Jazz. The spread at our good friends over at FanDuel, 17.5. I mean, the best part about entering today, was that David Locke was in town. But besides that, it was like, just get me to Thursday. Just get me to the Mavs game. Something exciting. And then all of a sudden, the Jazz come out frisky. The Jazz get a lead. And you're thinking, okay, just get through this game now. Like, just go take care of the Jazz come hell or high water. And then Shai goes for 54 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 17 for 18 from the free throw line, 3 for 10 from the three-point line, and 17 for 35, 48%. He almost made half of his shots in a 54-point game in this one. His first ever 50-point game on the heels of tomorrow, like before the Mavs game. He'll be announced as an all-star starter for the second time in his career. Alex Caruso lobbed that he's one of the greatest scorers of all time. I tend to agree. But how do you take in Shai's first ever 50-point night?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, the atmosphere coming in, it was like, oh, Wednesday night against the Jazz, like last place in the West. Like you said, didn't have much juice. What a cool night for everybody in attendance tonight that decided to come out in the cold in Oklahoma City to watch this game. Hey, and to the credit of the Jazz, they actually played their guys tonight. Like, John Collins had missed 8 games in a row. Colin Sexton had missed 2 out of the last 3, and then Lauri Markkanen had missed 4 in a row. So they put up a fight. And so I'm starting with that because they get the assist because they actually played the Thunder close enough tonight to where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander actually had to play a fourth quarter. Look what happens, Rylan. When Shai gets to play a full game, he goes for 50 points. Now, I thought that Shai, it's funny because in the post game, Mark Daigneault first said that he didn't even really think it was, Shai's best game of the season. Then Shai comes out later and says, I honestly didn't really think it was my best game I've had of the season. And I tend to agree with both of those guys. Shai, obviously incredible tonight. The 50-point game was long overdue. Several times this season, he could have had the chance to go for 50, but he didn't get to play a full game. And he's just not the kind of player that's going to gun for his own points and for his own achievements. But it came organically. And best of all, it came in a game that was close. And they actually needed all those 54 points to win tonight. And he went on a little run in the fourth quarter that the Thunder actually needed to win this game. So not only does he go for 54, but he doesn't within the game, and he did it to win the game. So great night from Shai. And it was cool to see on this random Wednesday against the Utah Jazz, a tanking team, you got to see, Shai's career high in points tonight.
Shai's career high in points, it previously was, 45, 46 once he hit that bucket tonight. Then he got to 54. First and foremost, the craziest thing that I have taken away from this is, like, before studying the box score, I said on my Locked On NBA recap, because we send in these 60-second clips to recap on game nights from somebody who was there covering the game, and I said it wasn't the most efficient night from Shai, and he still got to 54 points. He still hit the shots down the stretch, and it could have been even better because its efficiency was not from shot chucking, was not from bad shots. It was from the fact that Shai got to his spots at will, which necessitated the 35 shots, but some of them that he makes in his sleep did not fall tonight. But then you go study the box score. He made 48% of his shots, and we're sitting here saying that's not the most efficient Shai's been. Oh, that's not Shai's efficiency standard. Think about how crazy that is. That 48% on 35 shots on a 54-point night is like, okay, that's kind of just what he does, because he's right. How many times are those 10 games that Shai has not logged a single fourth quarter minute? As Caruso points out, a quarter of their games this season, SGA has been on the bench for 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. Think of how many times that's happened where Shai enters the fourth in that setting with 40. And a 10-point quarter for him is routine. I mean, that's just what he does, no matter the circumstances. So he could have had 50 earlier on. Like you said, the games have not been competitive enough to. Credit to Utah for making the score competitive enough to where you had to play Shai. And it even got dicey down the fourth quarter before he came in. It was a 1-point game. But I just think it's unreal that like his standard is a 48% night is viewed as that's not efficient Shai. It's pretty damn efficient. That's pretty good. I believe Alex Caruso, man. He's an all-time scorer. You can dance around it. You can try to tap dance and walk on eggshells and not want to sound like a homer. He's an all-time great, and he's going to bear out to be an all-time great. And he's the closest thing. Like when you close your eyes, and this is going to hit the ear extremely funny, and I am ready for you to lob tomatoes and boo me off the pod. He's one of the closest things to Michael Jordan this game's ever seen. Like whenever my dad tells me these stories about Michael Jordan, when I go watch these documentaries about Michael Jordan, when I go watch the highlights about Michael Jordan, that's the stuff Shai's doing. It's improbable. He's not one of these guys who's doing it by these step back threes and hitting 6 threes, and that kind of boosts you right there. Now you just got to go do the rest. He's doing it all inside the arc. He's doing it by just meticulously getting to his spots, breaking down defenders, and fancy footwork and brute strength. I mean, how many times did you see him shoulder check Walker Kessler 5 feet away from his planted spot? Like Walker Kessler, he's 7 feet tall, 450. And 7 feet tall, 240. And Shai is bulldozing him over. And it's like it doesn't even matter. That's how strong this guy is in a guard body. This stuff doesn't happen every day. It's happened every day for us because we watch the Thunder every single day. It's not something to be taken lightly. I completely agree with Alex Caruso that no matter how you slice it, he's an all-time great scorer.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it is, I watched Michael Jordan. I actually became a basketball fan because largely in part to Michael Jordan. First of all, Shai has spoiled us. When we talk about it wasn't his best, game of the season, 48%. Like that's how great he's been, how efficient he's been, that you can take a night like tonight, yeah, he could have been better though. Like he said so, Mark said so, and we think so. That's how good he's been. But the MJ comparison, it's because he's got that throwback old school, like he scores at the rim, he scores in the mid-range, he's got this really deep bag, and he's also a throwback two-way player. And Caruso mentioned it tonight. I love that he just kind of casually brought up out of nowhere, Shai's one of the best scorers we've ever seen. And Caruso is like a student of the game. He said tonight, I watch a lot of basketball. This dude is like a basketball junkie. And so he knows what he's talking about. And I agree. When you look at modern players, that whole MJ Kobe, and not saying that, he's going to win 5 or 6 titles like MJ Kobe and all this, but when you look at the game, you look at the efficiency, you look at the way he gets his points, you look at the two-way ability, you even look at the body type and some of the style and the way he gets to his spots, and just the dominance and how elite he is for a guard. And then you look at the numbers, the 30-point seasons. This is going to be Shai's third 30-point season in a row. That is MJ territory. And then you look at the steals and blocks combined with the scoring, combined with the efficiency. I mean, that's MJ stuff. And you don't usually see that kind of efficiency and defense all around game on high volume scoring from a guard, but we're seeing it from Shai.
You just don't. And Caruso, not just a student of history, but widely respected coast to coast as one of the best defenders in this league, who's had to defend every top active scorer in the NBA, including Shai. And he's one of these guys that just from being around him, he's media trained in the sense of he's very pointed with his words. He's not just going to throw stuff around, but he's also willing to let you in to hey, this is what I think. It's not just like the same 0-0 stuff that you might hear. He's like genuine up there. And so for him to sit there and genuinely say that Shai's an all-time scorer as a guy who's defended all-time scorers, I think is a big deal. I think you got to listen to the peers on that one. And like you mentioned with the defense, I know we're going to talk about the scoring a ton, and we'll talk about it again in the next segment. But another element of that Kobe influence, that MJ influence, like and Shai talks specifically about Kobe a lot, is just the competitiveness and the motor. Shai is of the NBA as we know it, the modern NBA. He's earned the right to be a guy that doesn't try defensively in January, that doesn't give max effort in January. You see it all the time. In fact, there's way more stars who play that way than there are stars that don't. And Shai doesn't do that. Shai plays on both ends, 100 miles an hour. Every single minute he's on the court, he's breaking up lobs at the rim. He's getting blocks. He's getting steals. And I just continue to harp on this because I think it's so true. If Shai was on a different team that didn't have all these defenders that you're gawking at, Shai would be the best defender. He's not the best defender because you've got Caruso, you've got Kaysen, you've got Lou, you've got J-Dub, you've got Chet, you've got Hartenstein. So he's not the best defender on this team. But man, he would be the best defender on a ton of teams, and he's the very best two-way star in this league. Only rival to him is Giannis. I mean, for a two-way stardom that do it on both ends and do it efficiently and do it every night and play their pace, their way at will, no matter who's in front of them. You know, you can talk about the Jazz being a lowly team, and I totally agree. They're one of the worst teams in basketball. But tonight they played all their guys, and tonight they had a formula that should have been troublesome. Not that any team can stop Shai, but Lauri Markkanen, with all his size and length, is blown by and is going to get mixed around on the dribbles. Of course, that happened tonight. But getting past him, what Shai did routinely, then you have Walker Kessler at the rim, where you do most of your damage at the rim. It's like you constantly had to battle through the trees in this game to play the way Shai likes to play. He took those battles on, he chopped the trees, and he ends up with a 50-point night, which gives you that freedom. Again, I agree with Mark and Shai. He's not some different player now that he's scored 50. He's not some different scorer now that he's scored 50. You're just now have the freedom to say it. You have the right of expression of, now that you've crossed this off your list, everybody can agree. He's went and got 50. He's went and averaged 30. He's been an all-star starter now twice, at 6:30 tonight. He'll be an all-star starter twice. So we all know that's coming. Like he's done it. He's checked it off the list. He's in the driver's seat right now for the scoring title. He's just an all-time great. And there's no real reservations needed on SGA because we've seen it consistently. His whole life's consistent, as he famously said, throughout this stretch.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of the most fun evenings this year was me and my wife getting a chance to go out. The excitement, the energy, it's unforgettable. It's unmistakable. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
The Timberwolves 1-point win over the Dallas Mavericks.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
Let's talk about this game against the Mavericks. So coming in, obviously no Kyrie Irving, right? No Luka Doncic. We knew Luka Doncic was out. Remember, he hurt his calf back on Christmas against the Wolves. He's been out ever since. And I believe they had initially said he'd be reevaluated in about a month. So he could be back on the court soon. Dallas coming into this game was 4-9 without Luka. So obviously, goes without saying how important he is to their team. Kyrie's been scoring a bunch lately, but it mostly hasn't been enough. I mean, they lost to Charlotte by 5 the other night. They came into this one. We knew they wouldn't have Luka. We knew there were some other guys that were questionable. I believe Jaden Hardy was questionable. I think Derek Lively was questionable, but they just announced on Wednesday that he's going to be out for months. There was also no Klay Thompson, no Najee Marshall, no Dwight Powell, no Dante Exum. Those are all rotation tangential guys for Dallas. And I mean, like, compared to the last time the Wolves saw Dallas, like, obviously you still got Kyrie, you still got PJ Washington. Daniel Gafford's always played well against Minnesota. He was good in this game too. Quentin Grimes was big off the bench for them earlier this year, but he was forced in the starting lineup. And so the bench is Spencer Dinwiddie and Maxi Kleber and beyond them, it was Kessler Edwards and Brandon Williams. And it just, like, not a lineup Minnesota should have struggled with, but I believe they were only favored by 3.5 on FanDuel coming into this game, because of the Wolves' own struggles, and they've been better on the road than at home, but obviously on the road in Dallas for this one-off, and a lot of factors that could have, that kind of made this game be closer than maybe it should have been. Now, the other reason why this game was super important is the Wolves came into this game tied in the season series 1-1 with Dallas and a game behind them in the standings. Well, now they have an identical record as Dallas, and they have the tiebreaker, and they're done with the Mavs this year. They only play 3 regular season games against Dallas, and they've won 2 of them. So they will have the tiebreaker if it comes down to it, whether it's, play-in versus playoffs or seeding within the play-in or within the playoffs. It's nice, really nice to have that tiebreaker. And now they're actually ahead of them in the standings because of that tiebreaker. All right. So this game started out really kind of putrid offensively for both teams. Minnesota scored just 17 points in the first quarter. This was just like a rock fight. Dallas kind of, I don't know that I want to use the word surged, but pushed ahead toward the end of the first quarter. So Minnesota was down 5, but early, the Wolves offense just felt very, like, deliberate, very rigid. It was like, okay, pass, drive into a crowd, maybe kick it out for a brick of a 3-pointer, or just get my shot blocked. Pass around the perimeter, and then a difficult shot in the paint. Like, it just felt like, okay, here's what we do next. And everything was kind of telegraphed. The intention was there. Like, there was a little bit of ball movement, but the possessions weren't ending well. They were just kind of like, I think the best word to use is rigid. Like, it just was very strange. Because the process wasn't always terrible. It was just like, why is this the shot they're getting out of this? It improved in a big way in the second quarter. Naz Reid and Mike Conley were the biggest reasons for it. Both those guys were fantastic in the second quarter, and they both finished with really nice games. I mean, Conley made his first, I think, 5 shots from the field. He finished 6 of 9 and 4 of 6 on threes. He had a big floater in the second half of this one, but he did a lot of damage in the second quarter, and he really was. I mean, you could argue this side of Jaden McDaniels, he was the Wolves' best player on the floor in this game. He had a plus 19. The Wolves won this game by a single point, and Mike Conley was a plus 19. Nobody else was better than a plus 6 in this game for the Timberwolves. That's how good Mike Conley was. And finished with 18, 8, and 5 with no turnovers, plus added 2 steals. I mentioned the 4 made threes. Nobody else in the Wolves made more than 2 threes individually. And a ton of that damage came in the second quarter when the Wolves needed it. They came into the quarter having just scored 17 points in the first frame. They were down 5. And Mike Conley was a big reason for success in that quarter. Naz Reid, same thing. He only had 12 points at the end of the day, 12.6 rebounds. He had some issues in the fourth quarter again, like he did the other night, or the other day, I guess, against Memphis, I think it was. But Naz was really good in the second quarter. Hit like a nice kind of runner in the lane. I think he knocked on at least 1 3 in that quarter, maybe 2. Just really strong play from those 2 guys that helped the Wolves ultimately surge ahead and get a 2-point lead by halftime. But they were the biggest positives in the second quarter, and it really continued into the third. The third quarter was a lot more Anthony Edwards. Anthony had 8 points at halftime. I think he was 1 of 6 shooting in the first half, made some free throws, and that was really the only reason he was even really on the board. But he did a lot of his scoring in the third quarter. And again, the ball movement improved. It actually wasn't terrible to start. They were just missing shots and driving into crowds. But as the game wore on, they ended up with more opportunities in transition. And I've been clamoring for the Wolves to do more in transition since last year. They did a little bit more of it when Cat was out last March with the knee injury, and they just never were comfortable playing faster. And I get it to an extent. You have Rudy Gobert. You set up your defense in the half court, especially last year. But this year, the offense is showing signs of life. The defense is good, but it's nowhere near as frankly dominant as it was last year. Why not increase some variance in some of these games? Why not make things easier on your offense by getting some easy buckets in transition? The Wolves finally did that in this game against a team in Dallas that, can push the pace too, especially without Luka. They're more likely to push the pace. And Minnesota ended up winning fast break points in this game 25-8 over Dallas, which is so rare. Like I don't know how I would go about looking this up, but I'd bet the Wolves have not beaten a team by 15 or more in transition and fast break points all season long, maybe even last year. I mean, 25-8. I cannot remember the last time the Timberwolves had an offensive, I should say, a fast break performance like this one. They were aggressive, getting out in transition, also getting, and I'm assuming in this statistic that's going to include like semi-transition or what I like to call secondary break opportunities, where guys like Jaden McDaniels are super lethal in the open floor. It's not always the first guy down the floor. It's that secondary where the first guy drives down. Dallas does a good job of getting back. You're kicking it out either for an open three, or it's a pump fake and a drive for that next guy, or it's a pass drive, pass shot. That secondary break for the Wolves has been so deadly of late, and Jaden did a lot of damage in that. That's also something Naz is really good at. Mike Conley's really good at leading those breaks. And occasionally you'll get a Gobert trail dunk in those situations, or that's or an Ant trail three. Sometimes if he's not leading the break, Ant sometimes likes to slow down tempo. If he's late getting back, he might get a trail three out of it. So I think the break and the secondary break, I know that they were really key in this game. I mean, again, winning that category, the fast break category, 25-8 was huge. And so the Wolves took this thing from a 5-point deficit in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, to a 2-point halftime lead, to a 4-point lead going to the fourth quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, they pushed this thing to a 12-point lead with Ant off the floor.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting, especially if you're like me and your team's not in it anymore. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. The NFC Championship features two dynamic rushing offenses facing off. The two quarterbacks, always a threat to run, but FanDuel likes one to run a lot more. Jaden Daniels has a total rushing over-under at 54.5, which is a lot more than Jalen Hurts, 29.5, though. Jalen Hurts, a lot of tush-push stuff. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
The Rockets choked, but the Cavs somehow choked even worse. The Rockets with the 109-108 win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Madison, I'm still reeling from the emotional roller coaster that was the end of this game, with the Rockets going on, getting the scoring drought that they went on, scoreless for almost 7 straight minutes in the fourth quarter. And then Fred with the back-to-back threes to bring them back, and the clutch buckets from Alper and Şengün late. And then just, oh my God, I'm melting. I'm still reeling. This was one of the most insane games that I've ever personally witnessed. How are you feeling? Talk to me.
I'm feeling grateful, man. I feel the basketball gods are finally paying us our due for the Eric Gordon 3-point fouls and all the bogus losses we had in the Silas era. We are due, Rockets fan. This is another one of those the Rockets finally come up on the right side of luck, and I think we got to give the Rockets credit, man. They battled all game. And I think we're going to go through play-by-play. Jackson go through play-by-play. But this was an incredible finish to the game, and one of the most unlikely finishes I've ever seen to a game. So just happy the Rockets pulled it out against the best team right now in the entire league. So good stuff from the Rockets.
Look, absolutely, right? Like, credit to the Rockets for battling in this game, for not rolling over when the Cavalanche started there in the fourth quarter. Cavs go on a 19-0 run, and it looked like it was going to be game over. Like, the Cavs you couldn't stop them offensively. Rockets couldn't get anything going on the offensive end. And then Fred hit a couple of back-to-back triples to give the Rockets to bring the Rockets back into it. Amen Thompson got to the free throw line, hit a free throw there. So the Rockets went on their own little like 7-0 run. Then Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green have a little miscommunication on the perimeter. Darius Garland gets a wide open 3-pointer, makes it 107-105. And then we're trailing. We're going through the recap here because the end of this game was just absolutely insane. You get a Fred VanVleet, Alperen Sengun pick and roll where Fred snakes it beautifully, gets into the, deep into the paint, lobs the ball right over the top. Sengun catches it, and he's got Jared Allen like inside the rim, puts the ball up. And then Sengun shoves Allen after the play, and they had to review it to see if that was going to be a tech. And thank goodness it was nothing. Credit to the refs in that situation for not calling that a technical, right? It was just two bigs. They've been battling all game. And then Jalen Green gets a huge defensive stop on Darius Garland. Amen Thompson goes streaking the other direction, gets fouled by Donovan Mitchell in transition, which the Cavs actually challenge and win the call on the challenge, which you think is like, honestly, low-key, that might have been the best case scenario for the Rockets rather than sending Amen Thompson to the free throw line. You get to actually run a play. They ran a play. Sengun had a great look at it and missed it. Then Amen Thompson D's up Donovan Mitchell, forces him into a tough step back. And then below the basket, the battle of the bigs, it's been going on all night, a super physical game. And Sengun boxes out Jared Allen beautifully. Allen had no choice. He was grabbing him, holding him, trying to do anything he could to get his hands on that rebound. Couldn't do it. Cavs challenge it again. And this challenge does not go through, so Sengun goes to the free throw line. We know Shingun's free throw struggles. We know he's had issues at the line. Ices 2 huge free throws. Credit to Sengun for rising to the occasion, for knocking down those 2 free throws. Rockets leading 109-107. with 4.5 seconds left. And then this is where the roller coaster starts. This is unbelievable, man. To have Tari Eason, dude, the subs, you get your all defense lineup in there. And then to have Darius Garland pull up from 3 and Tari Eason closes out way too hard, undercuts him, and literally the worst case scenario for the Rockets. A flagrant foul on a 3-point shooter when you were up 2 with a handful of seconds remaining. I thought it was game over, Madison. Everybody thought it was game over. Yeah. Like, if you go look at like the win probability from this game, I guarantee you from that moment that call was made, the win probability for the Cavs was like 99.9999% because you sent probably a 90% free.
Yeah, probably 90.8.
You sent a 90% free throw shooter to the free throw line for 3 free throws, and they kept possession of the basketball. And then, against all odds, the basketball god said, you know what? Here you go. He missed not 1, but 2 of the 3 free throws, coming up just short. And we gotta give a really special shout out here to none other than the voice of the Houston Rockets, Craig Ackerman. This team leads the NBA in free throw defense, and Ackerman was in his bag in this game. Ackerman held Darius Garland to just 3 of 8 from the free throw line, including those 2 misses at the end of regular. My goodness, he deserves the game ball from this. There's no other way about it. Craig Ackerman deserves the game ball from this game.
Yeah, Craig definitely. Hold my beer. What you said? He has a 90%. Hold my beer. He's been off all game, but I'm gonna pump him up as soon as he steps into the line. But incredible win from the Rockets tonight. I mean, to me, what sticks out about this win is honestly how good the Rockets starters defense had kind of got into a rhythm and got a couple stops in a row. And there was a key decision by MA. That's what I was trying to say, substitutions. And this is what it's kind of that rings bright to me. And MA does this in a lot of situations where he does situational subs, and he situationally subs in his best defenders, right? But when you do that type of stuff, you run the risk of ruining the rhythm of a game. These guys have been sitting on the bench the whole fourth quarter. Their switches may not be as sharp. They may not be as in tune to the speed of the game. You know what I mean? And you putting them in cold, they're cold coming off the bench, and they have to make the biggest play. And if you're a half second late, like Tari was on that switch, he can overcorrect by trying to get out a good contest. And that's what we've seen in the flagrant with the flagrant at the end. He was just a half second late on the confusion of that switch. And that type of stuff can happen when you've been on the bench for a while. And it's just, you don't have any time to adjust to that. I thought that was something that was interesting to me, because although I do agree with MA's situational substitutions, I didn't agree with it at this time and point in the game, not only for Tari, but also for Jayshawn Tate. I thought the Rockets starters had been playing really good defense and had gotten 2 previous stops, at the hands of Jalen Green, who's probably the weakest defender on the floor, made an incredible play, and also Şengün on the boards, really making a huge play to get those free throws. So I kind of, Tari's a young player, and honestly, he has less than 2 years worth of games under his hand. He can sometimes, although he's an excellent defender, he still has mistakes at times, especially in high pressure situations. He had a couple fouls on 3-point shooters in that Golden State game. He's still ironing those things out. It's glad that the Rockets trust him to be on the floor, but he has to get to the film and pay more attention to those types of things so he doesn't make those mistakes moving forward.
One more piece of credit to give out, because Amin Thompson had back-to-back great contests on Donovan Mitchell, because not only did he have the contest on the first step back that led to the Alper and Şengün box out in the free throws, but he also had the contest on the potential game winner, the inbound, the final play of the game for the Cavs, the turnaround from the left corner for Donovan Mitchell, and just back, again, fantastic defense from Amin Thompson. Rockets were able to somehow pull out this game. Look, Rockets choked. Cavs choked harder. That's the story of this game. Is that's exactly what happened. Shout out to Craig Ackerman. Shout out to the Rockets for the #1 free throw defense in the entire association, holding a 90% free throw shooter to just 3 of 8 at the free throw line.